Hello everyone, this is Major here with a guide for the Marvel Rivals character Cloak and Dagger. The character is a 2-in-1 with very strong cooldowns and consistent AoE healing. Cooldown management is very important, and the biggest weakness is low killing potential due to low initial damage, making summoned things a real pain for Cloak and Dagger to deal with. The first quick tip that I can give though is that Cloak and Dagger gameplay will consist primarily 90% of playing Dagger and 10% Cloak.
Get ready.
Going over the abilities, we will start with Dagger's primary fire, which is the Light Force Dagger. Light Force Dagger is a projectile that homes in on the closest target and heals allies hit for 10 HP and in a blue circle around it for 18 HP. What I mean with the blue circle is, you can see on the edge of the screen like a little blue circle in which you will heal at 80 hit points. Or it will damage an enemy for 15% damage and heal allies in the blue circle for 18 HP. So it's basically the same. The healing also applies to you, so if an enemy gets close, shooting them as Dagger is a smart choice. Self-healing by standing close to wounded allies and heal them. So you heal everyone, including yourself. Another thing to note is that daggers also bounce off of walls, and they will home in on an ally after the bounce, but they will not home in on enemies after the bounce. The secondary fire of Dagger is called Dagger Storm. Dagger Storm is a projectile that when it hits a surface transforms into a bubble that heals any ally in it for 55 healing hit points per second for 6 seconds. This is a big burst healing, though I recommend you mostly use it for yourself unless you're not getting dove or your tanks really need it. So as you can see, a big bubble in which it heals an ally or multiple allies. The ability for Cloak and Dagger, or for Dagger primarily, is the Veil of Light Force. This is a literal window that when it hits an ally heals for 45 HP and amplifies healing on those targets by 15% for 4 seconds.
Get ready. Here come the bad guys.
This amplifies healing both from you and your fellow supports. So when multiple people are in danger, catching multiple people will be very good for the healing output of both you and your allies. The last ability, which is bound by default on shift, is a swap to the character Cloak. I do recommend to put it on mouse wheel though, as you can swap really quickly and a mouse input is faster than keyboard input. The swap ability is called Shadow's Embrace on Dagger, and on Cloak it is called Light's Embrace, which is basically just swap to the other character. Alright, knowing Dagger's abilities, we'll have a look at Cloak ones. I'll provide some examples after the explanation about what you can actually do with Cloak's abilities, but his primary fire, which is basically Dark Force Cloak, is a homing beam with which you can suck the life from enemies for 75 damage a second, it says. There is nothing special about it, but I mean that 75 damage a second, I wonder if that is 100% correct. But as you can see, it's like, and it is homing, you can actually target next to your enemies. So, yeah. There's nothing special about it other than that it like doesn't require much aim. Alright. The secondary fire or like ability is Dark Teleportation.
They're coming up ahead.
Dark Teleportation can be considered a bubble, just like Dagger, which is centered around you. You and allies will get movement speed and become invisible and untargetable for enemies. You yourself will be able to move both horizontal and vertical. This tool is great for repositioning between fights, protecting yourself when necessary, or dodging dangerous enemy ults with not only yourself but also your team. The only downside is when your teammates take any action other than moving, they will become visible and targetable again. So the usage of the tool is going to take a while to use correctly in competitive, but as I'm going to show you, the bullets also don't hit or go through my allies here. And then as for repositioning, I'll show you that because the cooldown expires, which gives you also vertical movement to reposition or get yourself to safety. Alright. Cloak's ability, which is on his E, is called Terror Cape. Terror Cape, the ability for Cloak, is a screen just like Dagger that basically does the entire opposite. Where Dagger screen heals and amplifies healing on allies, Cloak's window actually deals damage and amplifies damage on enemies. It also blinds enemies, of which I will also show you a little bit of a more in-game footage later. But yeah, it's very important to use this on cooldown and like quickly swapping in and out of Cloak to get that going. Then we arrive at basically the ultimate of Cloak and Dagger, which is called Eternal Bond. Eternal Bond is a 4-dash sequence. Every dash lays down a carpet on the ground that heals allies for 220 hit points a second and deals 30 damage a second to enemies. Each dash lasts for 10 seconds. A quick note, while the damage cannot be stacked, the healing can, giving you a full 880 hit points a second area if you stack them all together onto each other. To be honest, the ultimate is best used as a tool to start a fight, as you can aggressively push to the enemy backline while keeping your team alive. However, I do recommend to always use the 4th dash to get back to your team, as you will otherwise be left fighting for yourself. Another neat trick with the ult is that it can be activated from the sky, so the best, well, I mean the safest usage is to go Cloak, go up and then activate it. As you can see, I'm still laying down the carpet. And you do fall down, but you can still get great results from it. But like I said, I would recommend like going into the enemy team, spreading out as much as possible and then ending up back on your front line to get the most value from it and be safe, be secure to heal if it is necessary at all. Okay, going further into what Cloak and Dagger can actually do is the team ups that are available for Cloak and Dagger. The team ups available at the moment are only Lunar Force, which is a combination with the duelist Moon Knight, and it provides, so with Cloak and Dagger as the anchor point. Now what does that actually mean? The anchor point means that there is a seasonal bonus active for Cloak and Dagger that allows her to do 15% additional healing, and it provides an additional ability to Moon Knight in which he places down a bubble and actually becomes invisible. I'm going to be honest, this is not the strongest team up in the game, as that bubble is mostly for pulling off a sneaky flank or something, but Moon Knight lacks the ability to safely get either in or out, so he can go in, but then he has no mobility anymore to get out, or like he can get out, but then how do you engage with it? So it is not really recommended to push for this team up, as at the moment there is also seasonal bonuses which just provide each anchor point of a team up with their bonus anyway. Alright, so what are some basic gameplay and tricks that you can use on Cloak and Dagger? So Cloak and Dagger is, like I said, 90% Dagger gameplay and only 10% Cloak.
My time to shine.
The easiest way to play her is to like spam your melee attack or like primary fire. Just spam it, spam it, spam it. You should never not be firing with Dagger. If the enemy starts to really push up, use your screen to keep healing flowing, and if it's really necessary, use the bubble to keep them tired. Topped up easily. What I also recommend is during the fight, you're healing, and you see an opportunity, go quickly cloak, screen the enemy, and quickly continue healing. There is also the scenario that swapping to cloak and back is quicker than reloading. So just quickly doing this, putting down the cloak and then back is like optimizing gameplay for Cloak and Dagger. Other opportunities in where I go cloak is, like I said, when you want to ult, you go cloak, you go higher, and then you go into your team. And what I do then is actually, most of the time, I will actually just go back to the enemy backline and start harassing supports, trying to force enemy ultimates or making a kill. Though, like I say, mostly, in most situations, forcing an enemy support ult is actually a better opportunity than killing them. The same happens in the case where your Luna, Snow, Mantis or Invisible Woman ults, because that gives the same scenario of your team being relatively safe from damage.
They're coming up ahead.
My time to shine.
Now, sometimes you are left to your own devices and an enemy tank or an enemy flanker runs up to you. What would I suggest you basically do in such situations? So, for long-range damage dealers like Hela, for example, or Hawkeye, Punisher, the best thing to do is not be in their line of sight. Like, you just can't remain in their line of sight. That is not going to work, that's not going to help.
Tandy needs help.
You can't really heal from damage dealt to them, you can reach them. So what I would suggest is you go like this, more than not. But there's gonna be a few times where you can actually do that without being harassed by them yourself. But it's basically hiding from them is the best option you have as Cloak and Dagger. They will actually win fights against you more than that you can actually win fights against them. Even when you catch them off guard, so for example when you've ulted and you've, like for example, for some reason you suddenly stand face to face with Hela, like you can go this and really get them down, but it's in very few occasions that you're going to win, especially when people start to really hit you when you do that. If enemy tanks run towards you, the best thing you can actually do is smile, because most tanks will not have the opportunity to kill you or not have enough sustainable damage to kill you. What I mostly do is I run up to the tank close enough, heal myself and like zigzag a bit around them. The movement is not really explicable, like some people will react to this better, some will not. Sometimes I will do this to really confuse them. But it's like very important to understand that hitting the target that is close to you will also heal you, and make the best use of that. Now, sometimes they will also start using abilities, and if you want to really play it safe, put bubble down and do the same. There is no tank that can really kill you through it, but they can wait out the bubble and kill you anyway. So in most 1v1 situations you're not going to extensively win or keep yourself alive, but you can keep yourself alive in most situations. What I do want to note though, your worst matchups are going to be against Thor, because he just has enough damage and a decent playstyle to actually burst you down through that. Doctor Strange, because he can explode, which does a big burst of damage. And Captain America is something you need to watch out for. In what situation? Captain America is a tank that at the moment is not necessarily better than other tanks, but it has huge sustain and can be a real nuisance. Be very aware that he cannot kill Cloak and Dagger himself, but he can keep you focused on him, leaving your team off to die. So be very aware of that fact, and with the Captain America it's better to bubble yourself down and try to keep your team alive like this than it is to really go after Captain America, or vice versa, shoot your bubble or like screens towards your team with a quick heal and try to keep yourself alive against the Captain America. Enemy melee flankers can be fought in the same way, however you need to be very aware for them actively or like surprising you. If you notice them coming for you, the best thing you can do is put bubble down and hit you, because melee flankers most of the time have if not one but multiple combinations in their kit to one-shot you. But if you keep the healing up before they arrive and heal them while they are actively attacking you, you may survive, you may give your team the chance to react to those flankers, kill them or help you out, if it is really necessary. Then the last part I want to mention about Cloak and Dagger, because she's so like cooldown dependent and doesn't necessarily have the like sustainable healing, I wouldn't say, because if you learn to play them you do have enough sustainable healing, but you kind of want to be communicative about what you are doing sometimes. So the best tip I can give is calling out your ult repeatedly. Guys, go in. Stay in my ult, it will keep you alive. Those are the kind of things I mostly do with the ult. And then also the lack or the usage of healing cooldown. So for example, your tanks are in danger and they keep taking damage, and you need to use screen, and then they still keep taking damage, you need to use bubble, and you call it out like, I've used bubble and screen, be careful, I can't keep up this healing. They either push in and kill the enemy to reduce the incoming damage, or they fall back and actually survive by avoiding damage rather than face tanking it. Another thing I would recommend is calling out if enemies are flanking. So if you see an enemy flanking, which is an easy deal because you do have some range, you do have the bounce that can give you some range and space. So you can have an overview of the battlefield. Looking around is something you can do. Calling out if somebody's starting to flank is something you can do and is really recommended. Being vocal, however, I would say can go too far, but that is mostly if you're used to real team-up communication. What are things you cannot really do is target calling. You can mention that somebody has used a certain ability and can die, but really target calling is something I do not recommend. Ult tracking is something you primarily want to do for yourself, but in the chaotic situation of competitive it's not going to work that well, because I have had fights that took like 2 or 3 minutes that like had 4 or 5 ults thrown, multiple were refarmed during the fight, and then the other thing is like planning fights and compositions. Really, most people are wanting to main their own character, so they most of the time are not going to listen to a question to swap, or even team-ups are sometimes not really worth it, and if they know that better than you, they might not say that it's going to work. So yeah, don't clutter voice chat with that. And I think that is actually the guide and the explanation of how the gameplay, team-up and abilities of Cloak and Dagger work, according to me and how I've played and what I've seen and studied for Cloak and Dagger. I wish you all a very good day, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you like the content, and if you think I explained something wrong or could explain something better, let me know in the comments below. And now I will show you the blind effect on Cloak screen and a good view on how to dodge ultimates with the Cloak right click. Furthermore, some more Cloak and Dagger highlights and gameplay that are available when you master the characters.